Greetings, hello, and welcome to our last Fireside Chat of the Virtual World Symposium. Well, today I'm very privileged to host the founder himself of GatherVerse, and we're going to talk about humanizing virtual world. Christopher Lafayette, please introduce yourself to those who don't know who you are, but basically they do. But please tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, Len, I'm certainly happy to be here with all of you today and on this third day of the Virtual Symposium, which has just been outstanding. We're coming off the heels of really a fantastic roundtable discussion, and we even have a powerhouse that's already situating in the green room here at the GatherVerse studios, and we're really excited to hear what they have to say. I'm Christopher Lafayette. I am founder of GatherVerse, emergent technologist and humanitarian, and I'm really I'm just so inspired right now after 3 days of people just expressing on a real authentic level of what it means, the virtual layer to them, which there's so many notes that I know so many of us here at GatherVerse.live in our global community are taking and have received. And so it's a lot to unpack and process, but each speaker, each expression, everything they have said has mattered. And I'm never looking at virtual worlds the same again.
Likewise, I'm never going to look at virtual worlds the same after Virtual World Symposium. Well, Christopher, you've always been a humanitarian and you have evangelized humanity first at the development of emerging technologies. And just give us a brief view. What does it look like to humanize virtual worlds for you?
Well, I think thematically, if we start to look at, and I think it's a good question, and so thank you for asking that, Lynn. Thematically, it just seems to me that what we've experienced just this week alone has been about community centralization. As I've once said years ago, that at the heart of the metaverse, if you will, that's a virtual ecosystem of interaction and communication. It's people, it's community. Part of our core standards at GatherVerse is community development. And residually, that's one of the big things that I take away today. What are virtual worlds? What is virtual extension, but an extension of humanity and nature itself? And it's so precious to see and to understand that people really have come around to the other side of technology and not to appreciate it in terms of it's the components and the products of what make these platforms, but more so the people that build them, innovate them, and use them. It'll always be about people, if you will, when it comes to the pipeline of progressive scale and adopting. And so for me, when I think about the virtual existence and humanizing virtual existence, it really starts here at places like GatherVerse, places where people can come together and congregate to be able to share and express from their different perspectives around the world. It's really a powerful experience at this 26th event that we have.
Definitely people first. I'm not sure if you can see me. I see a lot of latency. Please let me know if you can see me. Okay, thank you. So you've said people first, and another concern that I have seen you raised when you're talking about people is policy. You recently founded Hyper Policy to develop policy for an hyper-accelerated technological world. What are these policies that you would love to see in the development of the current virtual worlds, and what is coming in the future?
Yeah, so I think, and that's also a good question. We launched hyperpolicy.org, and we're doing some really fun stuff with a number of different people that are part of this. And we're working on a lot of different things in our laboratory, such as dealing with the AI-powered metaverse in a very authentic and ethical way, dealing with, when we talk about and use the terminology superintelligence, but ethical superintelligence, what that actually looks like in the exploration therein. Let's say in the ascendancy and the hierarchy of AI development, we're in so-called simple narrow AI on our way to so-called AGI, artificial general intelligence, Ethereum mind, self-aware, and then getting into, you kind of look at it and it's like, we create technology before ethics are established. Ethics stem from morals. Morals come from people, but ethics are agreed upon rules. There's a colloquialism that's involved with it. And we as technologists are some of the most poor thinking people when it comes to safeguarding humans. We're absolutely sometimes the worst at it because we get so fascinated and fixated on innovating. We do that really well. But when it comes to safeguarding humanity, we're really bad at that. We're horrible at it, actually, because we're at such a cutthroat race to innovate and to disrupt. And I'm guilty of this as well. I'm here in Silicon Valley. We were taught off those first principles of disruption, thinking about how it is that we scale. And now we're in the era of the hyperscale, if you will. As an accelerationist, that I don't believe in moving slow. I do believe in staying ahead of the cadence and the tempo of technology. But it seems to me that it's come to the reality of, at least for me, that's impactful, and certainly within the past many years, that the ethical considerations of artificial intelligence integrated into the virtual layer is one of the most important things and narratives that we need to be thinking about and spending our time on. Unfortunately, the reality is sometimes we don't care about these things until something happens. And then we have to go back and do damage control. But we shouldn't think like this. We shouldn't think about maybe we should invest a part of our capital raise and investment. When you're raising these seed rounds in Series A and going to an acquisition, when you start to think about what you're putting out there, what you're building and deploying out there for us to be able to adopt at this rapid clip, why don't we consider spending some of our capital investments instead of research and development and building the next thing on top of a credible thing that we've already built? Why don't we think about safety and ethics and wellness and what it means for people to interact with these platforms to be able to mitigate a lot of the obstacles that a lot of companies are subjected to? And it does impact companies in a major way when ethical fallout happens that could have been prevented. So us talking about ethics isn't us to say safeguard the thing that we know which not. The idea of putting in ethical considerations now instead of later is one to help protect companies to be able to preserve what it is that they've built. Without ethics, I think you're building on a foundation of destruction.
Oh, Christopher, that was so deep. And you mentioned something very, very powerful, that innovators often just want to innovate. But for the people and the consumers, I'm going back to the people and the consumers again. How do companies, how do policymakers, and how do consumers come together to form this policy even before the innovation just erupts more further?
I think that's a great question, because if you look out there, the natural question or the answer that we would usually hear is that we need to build a framework. We need to build another framework, a manifesto. We need to build another white paper. There's already frameworks, manifestos, and white papers that exist out there. They're all over the place, actually. The problem is that nobody knows that they exist because we're subjected to limited algorithms when it comes to us sharing a white paper and market. When we go to social media and we share anything, we're subjected immediately from the first post that we launched to the last post, if you will, in that given standard setting. We're subjected to algorithms, and that means people may not see it. What I really enjoy almost the most about GatherVerse is that we've created a platform that allows people that are doing incredible things that may not have huge markets. They may not be part of these multi-billion-dollar, trillion-dollar companies, but they are building and innovating just as well as anyone else. But it gives them a voice to lend and to share and to make them transparent. That's one of the biggest value that I've seen and that I take away from GatherVerse. And so to answer your question directly and specifically, Miss Lynn, the idea is to hold a global cloud consensus, to be able to centralize all of these frameworks, white papers and manifestos, put them all together, filter them out, and then come up with a defining way that's universally focused forward. That's some of the things that we're doing with Russell and what he's doing when it comes to his verification platform, the universal verification framework. He's now part of the Hyper Policy Lab with some incredible things he's going to announce soon. That's some of the things that we're working with so many other people that we haven't even made this public yet when it comes to GatherVerse or Hyper Policy, but we will. And there's other events that we're getting ready to deploy and launch that are kind of touch on a lot of these things, because GatherVerse centralizes community leaders. Look, some of our GatherVerse speakers, they have their own entire communities of thousands, tens of thousands of people, yet they find time to be able to come here as the central meeting place in the world for us to be able to talk and express these things.
Very powerful. And I can testify to that. We've been centralizing people from all over the world. I among them, who is here in Nairobi, Kenya, people from all over the world. Okay, I am not sure if you can hear me. Did I lose you? Or did you lose me?
You're here.
Okay.
You're good. We got time for one more, I see.
Okay, thank you. I want to boil down to more of the impact of AI, and one of them has been the labor markets. We have seen extremely tremendous shifts and a lot of layoffs, and so many people are shifting from their careers. Coming from an entrepreneurial point of view, you have been an entrepreneur for the longest time that you have been. What are some of the opportunities that you would encourage people, or someone who is going through massive layoff, or they're just uncertain on what to do next? What would you tell them?
It's fascinating that you asked me this for this last question that we have, and then I'll be able to share here with the GatherVerse global community, especially those at GatherVerse.live. And I see the few that are hanging out in our different social platforms and streams. Listen, disruption is susceptible to disrupting its own self. Disruption is susceptible to disrupting its own self. We're seeing people here at ground zero of AI innovation and development in Silicon Valley. There's a whole entire workforce filled with unemployed people. So the thing is, and it's really simple, that if we're going to extend reality, then we must bring reality with it. There's no point in having any type of virtual world, a virtual extension, a virtual layer, if we haven't satisfied the needs of the people that innovate, that build, and that cohabitate and inhabit these installations that we're wanting to extend. In other words, we can't take care of another world if we haven't even taken care of this world. That's all I have for you. That's what I got.
Chris, you have so much wisdom to share, and we just have only a little bit time to do it. But I'm sure with all the certain GatherVerses not GatherVerses, sorry, the future events that are coming, you will share more, and we will have a lot of people sharing more of these sentiments and more. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the next Gather. May our Gather be well. Our next panel, you're open. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss Lynn, and we'll turn it over to Russell now and the incredible roundtable that's coming up.